Today I've made a online article about Morgellons disease, and this article is also written down in the February 2009 issue of Vegetales, and this is the magazine of today about medicinal food, how to cure with food instead of synthetic medicines that's making you more sicker in the end. Okay, I just start the article, and I'm sure that on the way you will find out that this is a very interesting story. Morgellons disease, from illusion to inflammation. Scientists have long reported that Morgellons disease is an illusion. They called it delusional parasitosis, which can be translated as parasitic illusions. Nowadays, there are scientists who find it irresponsible to label this disease as an illusion, since patients with Morgellons show an infection similar to Lyme disease. This means, among other things, that the source of infection occasionally appears to be hiding in order to resurface later, just as in Lyme disease. Exogenous fibers in human bodies. At the moment, science is seeing this. Fibers that do not belong there are found in the human body. These fibers are of a human, vegetable, or synthetic nature. These fibers cause problems such as itching and infections. For the time being, it remains a mystery why some people suffer from this. For centuries, people suffer from this. It does not appear to be a common disease. It is known that people with this disease sometimes commit suicide because of the itching, which is so severe. People are ashamed because their skin looks ugly, and they feel distraught because they are misunderstood by doctors. Some people say that many more people have this disease, but that the diagnosis is often wrong. Morgellons may also have symptoms like nausea, headache, osteoarthritis, depression. It's a disease that's hard to catch, actually. In addition, there are people who say that Morgellons is a kind of a biological weapon. The fibers would find each other in the body and form a construction using DNA structures from fruit flies, and with that it would be a kind of an entity in the body, the consequences of which are insurmountable. And the last vision is more of a fear image that is created by people like Vella, and there should be very hard evidence to endorse such claims, though the study of the work of Vella shows his fearful theory is completely based on misinterpretations of facts. So the exogenous objects in the body. There are examples of people who have walked with needles in their bodies for decades. Needles may start to roam through the body. Needles are large, thick, and they are like bulky compared to fibers. If needles can roam through a human body, then fibers can do that too. Many fibers, including hair fibers, are poorly broken down, especially when they are in parts of the body where there's no digestion taking place. As a result, they change the structure and appearance and are more difficult to identify. Food and intestines as possible source. There is a possibility that hairs such as exogenous hairs of animals, root hairs of skin hairs of the body itself, and dead hairs of man himself end up in the body through food. So normally the intestines function as a filter, but in case of intestinal problems, these types of elements can penetrate the body. It is therefore possible that the body knows this problem, and in most people the hair fibers are destroyed. It seems logical to assume this way of penetrating that is a problem. The body does not see this as a priority, as long as the hair does not cause these severe disease processes. So ultimately the body is not built to endure hair as a host, so bringing out a surplus of fibers through the skin, it can be a part of a well-functioning immune system against exogenous disease factors. But in some people, this does not happen without medical indications such as itching, inflammation, bad feelings or crawling feelings, feelings of pain, fear and headaches. And this may have to do with nutrient deficiencies and the overall state of the immune system, which is suffering more and more. More and more people suffer from a bad working immune system nowadays around the world. So the power of self-examination. If scientific research fails to describe diseases, people will do research themselves. So what's striking is that there is no official therapy for Morgellons yet, but there are several active therapies offered by people with a history of Morgellons, and they see if I eat this, then it works against Morgellons. These therapies are called effective by the people who invented them, because there are people who testify them, and other people do also this therapy, and it seems to work, because Morgellons has long been put away as science as an illusionary disease. Serious research has never been done before the year 2000. So that's why people started to research themselves. In medical practice, people can be cured of Morgellons. There are several people who report that medicinal food is the most important way to cure. So that's why Vegatales is putting attention to this. Morgellons is an inflammatory disease. Medics who have started to investigate Morgellons disease see all kinds of inflammatory processes that are similar to the inflammatory processes in Lyme disease patients. At first, it is important to state that disease processes are not yet fully understood, but it is clear that the bacterial infections, viral infections, fungal infections are associated with other diseases. There is never a single infection. There are always multiple types of infections that go together. So in cancer processes, for example, there's a lot of inflammatory bacterial infections and also viral infections. It goes together with all the disease, and it's actually stating that the immune system is not working well because the infections are like winning. Combination infections. Parasitic infections are typically infections that are a combination of bacteria and fungal infections in combination with a parasite living organism within the body. So parasitic infection can be prevented with all sorts of food types because the right food keeps the bacteria, the fungus and the virus colonies under control. So Lyme disease can also be controlled or even cured with the right herbs. Candida is a fungal infection that often accompanies other parasitic infections, and it is possible that an overabundance of hair fibers, plant fibers and synthetic fibers causes the immune system to be overloaded, giving bacterial and fungal infections a bigger chance. For example, a chain reaction to infection processes is set in motion, making it understandable that one person is developing a different set of symptoms than another person. Now something about the history of Morgellons disease, which can also be a little bit revealing about the truth of Morgellons. So the Morgellons disease was first discovered and described in the Languedoc region in France. In 1574 the disease was first described in a book by Leonellus Faventinus the Victorious. He saw that children had a lot of problems. They had itching and pain and the feeling that insects were crawling under their skin. The mothers washed the bags with honey and fresh milk as a remedy. It was seen that these fibrous structures appeared from the scratch wounds of the children. These fibrous worm-shaped structures have been subjected to serious research for centuries, except between the 1930s and the year 2000, when the disease was rejected as an illusion. And from the 16th century on, the big question is, are the tubular elongated fibers living or from a living being? So what exactly did Leonellus Faventinus tell? So here's a piece of his original text. There are certain living principles in small children that resemble worms, called Dracontia by the common people. They mainly settle in the muscular parts of the body, especially the arms and the legs and the calves. Occasionally they even come together in the flanks under the skin, and sometimes they occupy the entire back. These little creatures have the property that unless they are exterminated by the right remedies, they lead to a painful separation or else immediately cause the child to languish. So Faventinus the Victorious also wrote a remedy. We are destroying worms of these types, which have the habit of sneaking into the pores of babies and little girls with this remedy. If they do not become more prominent, they would not have their heads shaken out. After they applied warm smears and smeared ointments and spices. So then they should be positively shaken to come out. Take as much of the root of the wild vine or the white vine, if it can be pressed in one hand. Boil in a layer of well-mixed oak charcoal, and with this the whole body of the child, and at the same time the worms has to be sprinkled and washed. After this has been done, the mouth of the Dracontia that have progressed forward must be shaved off with a razor blade. When decapitated in this way, the child must be cleansed again from the above lotion by bathing in castor oil, and then washed, and the exposed and possibly cut skin must be smeared in with Syrian ointment. I wrote a link in the article so you can read the whole story of Faventinus the Victorious. But in those days they were thinking maybe it's a living organism, but they didn't have a microscope yet, and that will be later. Conspiracy theory: in our current world we deal with this disease in a completely different way. An American women's magazine, Jezebel, describes the disease in 2015 as paranoia of an individual. The women enthusiastically waved the Morgellons disease to a realm of conspiracy theories. The medical facts point to something else. So Morgellons is recognized as an existing disease and is being studied by science. So why do some folks say it is an illusion? And what's the matter with people who have Morgellons? Or maybe, what do dermatologists say? Because it's also researched by them. In 2016, a medical report is published in the Indian Dermatology Online. So one patient complained of itching, burning, insomnia, fatigue, and came to the dermatologist with fibers collected from her wound. After investigation, the Indian doctors came to the conclusion that it must have been the fibers of a broom. With this diagnosed, it has acquired the name Morgellons. It appears to be the first case in India that is officially reported in a medical report. The researchers go back in their considerations and search for the exact phenomena to a letter from Sir Arthur Brown from 1674, in which he describes that he has seen children with strong hair coming out from their backs. The Indian researchers call it a mysterious disease. They also see that sometimes it gets the diagnosis of scabies. In the case of scabies, there are actually small insects on the skin that cause itching. And that feels the same way actually. And patients sometimes describe that as a feeling of insects crawling across the skin. So the inventor of the telescope saw Morgellons also for the first time. Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, Dutch scientist from the 17th century, is known as the inventor of the telescope. He wrote books full of his findings from a new world and unfolded it to the general public. He too was touched by the search for new science and researched the Morgellons disease. He watched the Morgellons through the telescope, through his microscope, and concluded that it is not a living material, but hair. That is possible, of course, from current scientific research in which fibers were extracted from wounds. It turned out that at least one is a dog hair. So human hairs have also been found in wounds. In addition, synthetic fibers have clearly been found in wounds. So a scientific study has reported that this can be caused by flossing with nylon thread. So fibers have been found in wounds with keratin compounds of the human body. So keratin is the most important substance in hair. For example, the fibers could be dead roots of human hair. Somehow these hairs can cause medical problems, and so much is clear for now. Other people who look through a microscope, however, come to a different conclusion. They could have been parts of a living organism. Sometimes it is suggested that the long-shaped fibers are in fact the legs of an insect, and there is no scientific report on this yet. So never it has been the case that a leg from an insect has been pulled out of a human body. It has not been seen by any doctor or scientist. So fibers as source of Morgellons. So while studying the Morgellons problem with the scientific mind, the following hypothesis might arise to the consciousness. Hairs, sometimes exogenous animal or plant material or synthetic material that are removed through the skin, through the body, cause inflammatory reactions like itching and the feeling that there are insects under the skin. Possibly there are body hairs of people who grow, the body hair which grow the wrong side and cause all kinds of medical problems subcutaneously. These real feelings of something under the skin can be explained by these phenomena. In the Middle Ages, Languedoc was the heart of the wool and silk industry in Europe, and that could be a reason for the occurrence of exogenic fibers in human bodies. Also, it is possible that exogenic fibers in the body cause the body to grow body hair in an impaired way. If it are intestinal body hairs that cause the problems, then it is to be expected that the body has a response, that the hair is pushed out of the body. With an abundance of hair in human tissue, it can be a logical reaction of the body that the hair is pushed out through the skin, and that could explain the feeling of insects under the skin. Likely so, exogenic fibers may be pushed out by our body to the outside, causing the same feelings. So, and from now on I will only talk about the therapy against Morgellons. At this moment there is no official therapy against Morgellons. All sorts of websites, however, point to possible therapies and treatments based on nutrition. This often is supplemented with advice such as go to the sauna every week. A liver cleansing is often part of an effective cure. Detox is the healing word at Morgellons. The body sees too many inflammatory invaders. Our body must slowly recover from the problems caused by the fibers. And the fibers must not be fed The inflammatory processes around the virus must not be fed by bad food in the form of a lot of sugar, industrial fats, artificial additives and white flour. So we first have to eat well for a few weeks with much more nutrients than we are used to, after which a liver cleansing can take place. Temporarily turning to vegetarian food can lead to a relief of symptoms, because then we avoid any toxins from meat. It is extra important to use food and herbs that work especially against pathogenic bacteria and fungi. Anise and star anise work very well against Candida and also Morgellons. Drink tea from star anise against Candida every day. Raw garlic, good against viruses, bacteria and fungi. Garlic is very good against Candida and also against all kinds of bacteria and viruses. Garlic needs to be eaten daily as a medicine, preferably raw, although that's difficult. Make garlic butter by cutting it small and mixing it with real butter. Use fresh garlic in salads. Boil soup and at the last minute you put garlic through it. Cut a clove of garlic on your plate and mix it with your hot meal, and that's the way to use garlic as a medicine. So go cocoa. Coconut oil is a strong anti-candida medicine. You can use it as butter on your bread, or you can fry food with it instead of using supermarket baking oil, which promotes different types of inflammation in the body. Oregano. Oregano is an herb that works against a series of pathogenic bacteria and viruses. This herb is known as one of the strongest antibacterial herbs. It is also a nice kitchen herb. You can use it daily in soups and sauces, omelettes and herb butter. Just like garlic, you can cut it, or in this case, you cut it very small on your plate and you mix it with your food, so that you feed it raw. You feed your body with raw oregano. The nice thing about oregano is that it contains a lot of nutrients. All kinds of minerals and vitamins levels in the body are complemented by eating a few weeks of oregano. And there are more nutrients in oregano than in most vegetables. So actually I also talk about herbs against candida because it's all related. It's all a combination of inflammatory processes, and I think it's a wise idea to publish in the month of March an article about Lyme's disease, which seems to be related.